Of conditionality. And the title that I'm giving this talk is Conditionality as Mystery, both awe-inspiring and bewildering. So I'm going to start with a classic quote, translation of a sutta. This is from the Samyutta Nikaya, and it's the classic quote about conditionality. It says, when this is, that is. With the arising of this, that arises. When this is not, that is not. With the cessation of this, that ceases. So, I'm going to take it very simply. In this quote, this and that are not separate. They're related. And I really went back to, I think this is the source of my speaking about the Dharma as relational. It arises between us as long as we're living, breathing, and connected, as long as we're relating. And even not relating can be understood as a form of relating. So that might sound illogical in some respects, but I think it holds the paradox of conditionality, of the teaching of conditionality. In meditation, I often review my ways of relating, and I'm curious about how others relate. So what we say to one another, how we act individually and collectively, these reflections return again and again in my meditation sittings. They're a big bulk of what goes through my mind in my experience. And these days, friends who are facing difficulties often come to mind. When I was younger, I remember praying for people that had difficulties. And now they seem to accompany me or visit me in meditation. And I get to spend time with them there. And it feels like something similar, but it's a little bit different. I'm going to quote Thich Nhat Hanh here. He's an engaged Buddhist monk. He passed away relatively recently. But he coined a term, interbeing. And I've never used the term before. I haven't had that much relationship with it. But this is how he talks about that term. 30 years ago, I was looking for an English word to describe our deep interconnection with everything else. To interbe. We inter-are with one another and with all of life. So I really like that he added a word to the Dharma. I mean, it kind of went through him. He said, I can't even find he was Vietnamese, a Vietnamese word that would represent this. He chose an English word. And it does seem to capture an embodied quality of conditionality, not an abstraction, but something that we live with. And it's more interesting to me at this time in my phase of learning. I don't know why. I've just kind of happened upon it. And that I feel like we're kind of talking about the same thing. So back to my meditation. In the meditation yesterday, and this happens, sometimes a phrase arises as if to distill something in my experience. And yesterday it was, other people don't have control over their lives any more than I do. And it brought such relief. Like the statement just came. It brought a lot of relief with it. It shifted me away from comparing myself with my friends or with their dukkha, with my dukkha. And it really kind of, to me, held a recognition that dukkha rotates. It goes through every life. This grief or upset or anguish in its various forms. And it also pointed to a mystery of how it rotates, how it lands in people's lives. And the conditionality is never fully understood when dukkha arrives at your door. There's unknown conditions, pieces of a puzzle, enigmas, conundrums. All of these are interwoven in our experience. And in Buddhism, we're not expected to know all of that or to understand all of the conditions. We really don't think it can be done. So early Buddhist texts tend to talk about conditionality known from this fathom-long body. It's known from as far as our arms can stretch out, as far as our legs can stretch out, and as far as our minds can stretch out. That's how we can know conditionality. But we're still advised to keep it close to our experience, to not stretch too far. And I often think of this when I compare myself, or I think like, Einstein's way of knowing gravity. His causes and conditions were very different than the way my mind works, or my understandings, or the way my legs stretch out in this life. But what matters is what we do with the conditions we inherit, the causes and conditions we inherit, the way our minds work, the way our bodies work. And in sharing our meditations, we hear each other's unique ways of knowing, unique conditions, and the way they come together and the way people are relating to them in the world. So sometimes I like to use this early Buddhism understanding as a way to, or an excuse to turn away from politics or from larger forces shaping our society. Yet as this administration grows more militarized, abandons what I see as democratic values, every day I find myself saying, every day, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And how can this be excused? How can this be supported? I really feel like every day brings another shock. So I keep trying to read more, to try to read understandings of how to counteract this, of how to live with this, but it still feels like a kind of mystery, but not the awe-filled kind, the awful kind, actually, and bewildering kind of mystery. And it comes to me that not all mysteries are solved in one book. It takes many volumes. And my life is continuing in the midst of these difficulties. So I'm going to quote another person here, Ajahn Chah. He was an influential Buddhist monk who revived the Thai forest tradition and really brought that tradition into a contemporary modern times. And he says, if you see conditionality clearly, you'll never be careless. You'll see that things are just so, arising and passing according to conditions, and in that seeing, there is both peace and wonder. Okay, the statement runs ideal for me. So I use our reflective meditation translator, translating style, and add my understanding into what he's saying. And I add careless is not only not paying attention or being sloppy or not concerned or negligent, it's also not caring, losing my caring. When I lose my caring, I'm not seeing conditionality clearly. And conditionality helps me return. Understanding conditionality helps me return to care. And also with his statement about peace, I think peace really changes when you add in mystery, when you add in wonder to it. It really expands the idea of peace to not meaning a conflict-free zone. So in the movie Miss Congeniality, I'm changing pace here. It's a Sandra Bullock comedy. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. All the beauty contestants were asked, if you became a leader of your country, what would be your first priority? Every single one of them said, world peace. And Sandra Bullock rolls her eyes in the movie, and I rolled my eyes with Sandra. But this morning, my mind goes to a close cousin of peace, writing this talk, equanimity, one of the Brahma Viharas, which is often described as a refined form of peace. Sharon Salzberg described it as cradling the immense sorrow and wonder of life at the same time. And so I'm not rolling my eyes at that definition. I'm really trying to embrace that. And that is a way that I lean. So perhaps, in meditation, this is why I really like these phrases that come, and it may not be phrases for you. It may be an image or a body sensation or a voice or hearing something that kind of arises in your meditation, but it seems to distill or integrate all of the conditions that are rolling around in your experience. And the phrases, they often stand out to me, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, but they come with a relief, and that often does help my resilience to live with uncertainty and to endure the mysteries that I don't know and to keep my caring. So I will end here and we'll meditate.